YouTube family, hey, make sure that you subscribe, you like, you comment, all the YouTube things, you know what to do. But anyway, this podcast was Saw DeSimone. If you don't know who this amazing, loving, inspiring, permission slip people is, you are missing out, and I'm excited for you to get to know them. Woo! Get ready for this podcast. Let's go. Well, Saw, thank you so much for being here. Dude, how in the hell are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, to be honest, but I'm good. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And I actually, what's interesting is I can tell, but I like that you're tired and I love how you just own that because typically you are just on, right? So
Yeah,
you're just like
that's
boom,
right.
boom, boom, spiritually sassy all the time. You know what I mean? And so I love that
That
you get
is
to
right.
like own this space.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went to kickboxing this morning.
Yeah.
Uh, Woke up at 6:30, meditated, and made a coffee. Went to kickboxing, and then came back. Had to Was teaching the Sun method, which is if you guys know of my practice, it's a dance practice with meditation, breath work, and mantra
Yeah,
together.
it's cool.
Did that for an hour. Left that. Planned this little thing that I'm doing, this little adventure next week. Talked to my mom, ate some food, talked to my team, and here we are.
Hey,
So it's
and
been a little bit like, yay, full power.
I love it. Like I'm curious. Before we started recording, you talked about just briefly how you never would have imagined this. You never, would have dreamed of this. And you said you're actually selfish. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that would
Yeah,
shock people, right? That'd be like, Saul was selfish.
yeah.
Why, how?
Thank you for this question, honey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the reality is like I was working in the fashion industry, kind of creating these beautiful images as the creative director of this international fashion magazine. We're spending like $250,000
Mm-hmm.
every season. It was pretty obnoxious what we're doing. But we created a name. It was really beautiful. It was like stunning to look at. But we were guiding people to buy things that they didn't necessarily need.
Mm-hmm.
And the educational component, yes, it was deeply vulnerable and spiritual in its own way. But it wasn't like educating people to like, hey, go train your mind, go open your heart, go like energize your body, and go think about the well-being of others. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that at all. Um, and then in the fall of 2012, this is November of 2012, I walk into my partner's office and I say, "Yo, I gotta go." I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
multiple things that happened leading up to
Right.
that, but I said I gotta go. Time for me to leave. I have to sort of like get out of this space. I have to get out of the fashion world for a bit and just like find myself. Um, and that was really hard for me to do. It was extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And underneath of that, it was like a falling out of like best friends. So I was walking away from this feeling like betrayed, feeling hurt, all this stuff. And then I decided to like move down to Florida and start to, study a little bit of meditation, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, sustainability, veganism, yoga, mindfulness, blah, blah, blah. But it's still a little bit like, yeah, whatever. Just give me some of this shit. But like, sure, sure, honey, this stuff, whatever.
Uh,
And then it was spring of 2014 that I went to India for the first time. And then I did a 10-day silent retreat. And then it was at that silent retreat that I was like, oh shit, no one's ever told me that like my past doesn't define who I am,
mm,
that my mistakes are not an innate part of who I am, that I have basic goodness. It doesn't take away responsibility for the pain we've caused others and the pain that was caused to us, but it gives us an opportunity to stop the cycle of harm, right? To choose and then what? this really fucked up thing happened, and I choose compassion. This traumatic thing that I did happened, and I choose joy, or I choose wisdom. There's the, and then it's a comma, it's not a period, right? It opens up the conversation for an entire new approach to life. And then I went on, I was telling you earlier, to do a 30-day silent retreat. And now we're in Nepal at this point. And then that's when I said, oh, wow, I've been such an asshole. To go back to give your answer to the question. Oh my God, I've been such an asshole. Oh shit, it wasn't all their fault. I was just like so in so much pain, traumatized, wobbly, fearful, insecure, you know, like the whole thing wobbly as fuck inside, that I was like blaming the outside world and literally like, bleeding out this pain onto other people. And I was like, oh fuck, I've been so selfish. I've been such an asshole. Oh my God. And that led me to go into a deep depression with having that awareness of like the responsibility that I've had in my own life. I have no one to blame. I have to look within. And that's a very radical thing that the Buddha offers, right? It's like you are the creator of your nightmares and all of the goodness. It's pretty radical when you really turn all blame into one. It's really difficult to swallow that and to internalize it, right? So when you ask me like, oh shit, can I be selfish? Yeah, honey, I had a past of being really selfish. And then as I transformed my mind, right, as I started to open my heart, it really is a natural next step that your quality of your mind changes in altruism, which is an innate quality to every human, becomes more of a default. We've done a great job at hiding and at putting altruistic nature. Fuck that shit, honey. I'm an individual. It's all about me. My feelings matter. My thoughts, my life, my. And then it's like, what about the well-being of others? Never comes into the picture, especially in this like self-care world. It's like people become so intoxicated with the good feelings that their self-care practices bring them, that they're like, I need more of this for myself and my friends and my little community, but they never really ended up. And I'm generalizing this. It's very simplistic language, right, to use like that. But the key word is to know if you're progressing spiritually, is to know if altruistic thinking is more of your default. And if it is, sorry about that. And if it is, then you're doing a great job. Then you're genuinely progressing spiritually. And that's when I realized like, oh wow, I'm actually going through life like genuinely thinking with like genuine concern about people. Okay, damn, it's not all about me all of a sudden. What's changed? And then you start to read these ancient scriptures and this ancient and the commentary and the literature, and it's like that is a really beautiful point to see if you're thinking about the well-being of others more fully. So long answer to a short question.
I love it though. Like, but when you look back at that, I know we're like at that time, yes, you were selfish, but if you look a layer beneath that, do you actually think you were being selfish? Because you were probably protecting yourself right? Which is, I think, is a form of love.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we can interpret anything, especially through tantric Buddhism. Like, honey, the most transgressive thing can be seen as an act of enlightenment, right? So it's like, and that's the lineage that I studied. So you can bring up anything, and I'm gonna tell you, honey, it's all perception, right? You could see me being a fucking asshole and be like, oh my God, he's helping me heal, and like you're the guru, And like when people ask me about people. And what to do with people in governments and the most triggering people in their lives. To a degree, I'm telling them, right? I'm telling them, put these people on the altar. They are the center of worship now. They are the devotional practice. They are the guru because they're helping us see our mind. They're helping us exercise our best qualities. They're helping us to really open up the field of compassion to fit all sentient beings, right? We do a great job of sharing love, compassion, and joy with the kind people, with the nice people. But when anyone outside of that, ooh, hell no, that's not for you. I would never bless you. I would never have compassion for your suffering. So I think to a degree, I could go a layer deeper into that. and think about the fact that like growing up, where my queerness was said to be a problem,
Yes.
was said to be traumatic, was said to be a sin, and
Literally.
you're brought up as a mortal sin, and you're like, oh shit, I'm a mistake, I'm broken, I'm innately bad.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about it like that, and then you realize like, oh, these people are the ones who are uh, um, cooking these seeds of shame and blame and guilt and blah 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 and mortal sin. All the seeds they're in the karmic stream of my mind, right? They already exist there for many many lifetimes, right? And you may for everyone listening, you may be listening to this shit, be like, fuck past lives, fuck future lives, I only got this life, whatever floats your boat. But just, you can even think about what I'm saying to you from a epigenetic trauma perspective, right? So you can look from the high view of karma or the view of epigenetic trauma, whatever works for you. But it's important for you to think that certain things we already have predisposition for them. So I could tell you that, like, when you ask me, would you think we're being selfish? I could say that this was my way of surviving.
Yes.
As a queer person of color, like, I've had to have multiple personalities to survive.
Yes.
I've had to have multiple ways of getting my way into places and to belong, to receive love.
Yes.
So I could say that the way I walked in the world, pre-awakening, was selfish, or I could say it was my way of surviving. I could just we could make it nice, and then we can say, it was how I was surviving because he didn't receive the nurturing and the care that he needed as a queer person of color growing up. Um, or I could just say, you know what, like, yeah, I did cause a lot of pain to a lot of people. So yeah, you were an asshole. Now what happens then? I like that view better. But I'm also all about like it's we it's the mind is the cause of all problems, right? The mind is the cause of all suffering. So and because of the mind, we have perception. And because of perception, we have meaning. And because of meaning, certain things are good, certain things are bad. So because of that, you could say, selfish was survival. Or I could say it was a fucked up way of going, honey, about it. So we can leave it at that.
And both can exist.
That's right. That's right. Both can exist.
Because it really is both. It's like you were an asshole, but it was your way of surviving as well.
That's right. Exactly.
And it's okay.
That's right. Oh, thank you for that, honey. I'll take it. Seeing it like that. Thank you.
I love it, man. So on that note, when did you, I'm sure it just wasn't like a snap, but when did you start embracing like the you? When did you start remembering? I'm going to use the word remember. I like the word remember.
Me too.
Instead of like heal, because like you said, you weren't fixed. You don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. So when did you step into that knowing and remembering of you?
Such a good question. There's been so many moments of like deep, deep, remembrance of that. I think the beginning of it was like meditating on death and like, like really having like 3 days consecutively of like sitting with my mortality. And like day one, you are like surrounded by your loved ones. Day two, you are surrounded by your loved ones and you making your peace. Like, oh, all these things I wanted to have said to you. I'm even getting chills right now. Ooh. All these things I wanted to have said to you, I didn't say because I was afraid. All these dreams I wanted to accomplish, I didn't accomplish because I was afraid.
Yes.
And then day three, it's the flickering, your inner light, it dissolves and then you die. So meditating on death was what started to orient my mind towards the direction of my heart, where like I started to remember more of who I truly am. And in remembering more of who I truly am, I remembered how I'm here to serve, how I am to be so embodied in my fullest expression. And that will be how other people are then remembering who they can be and the potential that they have just by me being fully expressed. I hear people calling me outside your permission slip. And I'm like, that's right, honey. It's like take a permission slip and a blessing factory and merge those together. That's what I wish people would call me.
A
That's what I
blessing
want to
factory.
be
I like that.
that's what I want to be remembered for. It's like stepping in the world as a blessing, enter a supermarket and be able to like positively impact everyone without a
Mm,
word, just by how I carry myself, you
yes.
know. So that was one moment. Like the meditation on death was a really big catalyst. And I've had moments like on a dance floor and this was in India, but then I had moments in a dance floor in Bali where I just remembered entering to these like states. I call it spiritual blackout, where it's
Mm,
like you just literally or you can call it samadhi, moments of flow, whatever language works for you. I'm not talking about the fullest extent of samadhi. I'm talking about just entry level of unity or yoga, without the A. Or that's the original word, yoga. It's communion, right? A complete union with the present moment where the narrator is gone, the commentator is gone. It's just present moment awareness, complete immersion with that. Where in that movement with the stillness, I was able to like it was I mean literally I lack words to explain what was
mm,
happening inside, but the truth of it, the byproduct of that experience was it was just seeing myself in the world through a different lens. um, and so I think these are the moments that I've like remembered. And a big moment for me was also when I decided to take refuge on the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, right? The Buddha meaning like the potential that we have, which is the seed of enlightenment, the seed of complete freedom that lives at the base of your being. Every sentient being, every human being has that seed of awakening, complete freedom inside of them. So you take refuge on that. You utterly believe that you have that seed, and then you take refuge on the Dharma, meaning the teachings, the practice that are going to lead you up to that remembering, to that complete utter remembrance. And then you take refuge on the Sangha, on the community of people who are going to remind you to remember that you have that, and then you have the path. And that's when I decided to take refuge. I said to one of my gurus, I said, "Yo, I'm gonna take this shit for a year. And if this shit don't work, I'm back to being a crack baby. I'm back to drugs. I'm back to alcohol. I'm back to being selfish. I'm back to
ah,
thinking all about me. And I don't give a fuck about all this shit. I'm glad I came. It was so cute. It's all story that I'll tell at some point. What the fuck happened to Sai? He went to India for a year and then meditated and did all these things with all these guru and saints, but whatever. Cute look, but like back to New York City, give my life back. But no, after a year of having that discipline, that it's I call it devotional obedience. It helped me to. It just everything changed. I have like it's just legit like night and day. When you're devoted to transforming your mind, to concentrating the mind, really, everything changes.
mm, I love that. And even like I can tell that you're like when you talked about just getting chills, but even just now looking into your eyes, I can feel it and like see it, you
Yeah,
know?
thank you.
For sure, right? Of how like has been your experience like when you have that remembering
Mhm.
and you right because I'm listening to you and you are using like verbiage, but I know also like you're trying to keep it simple as well,
Of
right?
course, yeah,
Right.
it's my
So
job.
but let's just say 3D so like reality, how do you remind the human version of you to keep, because you remembered that true soul, that seed of freedom,
Hmm. Hmm.
that. So
Hmm.
how as a human, how do you practice that every single day?
How do I practice that every single day? So I meditate in the morning every day. I mean, maybe I've skipped a handful of times this year.
Yeah.
Um, but after the practice, I say a vow, which says, I know that I may die today. And because of that, may I only do the things that matter most to me, that it can have the greatest impact on as many people as possible.
Mm.
That really orients your mind. Like priorities, what are they? You know, and the meditation that I do, it's a simple awareness of the breath, and then I go into a little bit of vipassana, sometimes a little mahamudra, sometimes a little conceptual thing, but it's usually very, very simple. It's like pay attention to the feeling of the breath, become one with the breath, and then from that place, all of your best qualities are developed, and they're intimately experienced, and then you can amplify and share them with the world, right? So meditate, set these vows. I chant 7 different mantras, one for each different archetypal deity that I'm working with. This is one, Green Tara, Universal Compassion. And the mantra is really simple. It's Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. It simply means like, it's a way of translating in a way that's very related. It's, may all beings with no exception be happy, be healthy, and be safe. And may all beings with no exception live with ease and be free of suffering. And so I do that. And then throughout the day, it's literally moment to moment, present moment. Like literally, pause, breathe, smile, pause, breathe, smile, pause, breathe, smile, as much as often as I possibly can, to remind myself that it's only in the now that solutions live. That's only in the now that creativity lives. That's only in the now that I can actually be free. And then I dance, I run, I work out, I eat well, I drink a lot of water, I laugh a lot, and I surround myself with people who challenge me, who show me my best qualities, also who show me my blind spots. And I'm very careful with what I take in. I think in pandemic world, people are like ingesting everything. They're watching every show, listening to every podcast, they're just like, literally consuming the world. But we forget that nothing goes unseen, that that there's not a single experience that meets your senses that does not get documented. We're like, no, that's not true. It's like, no, boo. Like if you talk to a neuroscientist, if you talk to someone who's like a karma expert, both people are going to tell you the same thing, that it's literally being documented on a physiological, psychological, and spiritual level. So what I'm consuming, I'm that person. Like, this is a little bit, some people be like, Sai, you can't, like, that's not the way to really live. But like, I'm honest about it. Like, I've worked with some like global celebrities, and people are like, do you watch their show? I was like, no, I've never seen them before. Do you know the kind of things that's happening out in the world? I was like, no, I think well-being is for everybody, and these practices are worthy. Anyone is worthy, despite of whatever's being put out into the world. Or, for instance, last week going to Mexico, arriving the day before, and everyone's like, "Sai, you realize you just arrived in Mexico, but there's a hurricane category 4 about to hit you." I was like, "Oh shit, no, I had no idea," because I'm really not consuming news in the same way that a lot of people are. But the one thing that I can remind people to remember, to stay in remembrance, is stop multitasking. Like legit, multitasking is like creating imbalance in the mind. It's creating disease in the body. It's not helping you to make peace with your past or be okay with the future. It's literally like you're unintentionally regurgitating your traumas, and you're not remembering the potential that you have, the visionary, iconic, beautiful being that you are, because you're scattered. So when I say to you, when I spoke about pause, breathe, and smile, imagine that every thought, recognize that like every thought and every feeling, they don't require a reaction from you. We have been indoctrinated to react to every feeling as the right guide to our lives, to every thought to be the correct view of myself, of the world, right? But what if, when you do feel an urge of a feeling, regardless of the texture, right? More towards this end or more towards that end, or the quality of your thought more towards this end or that end, whatever variation of it. But what if in that moment that that's caught your attention, that you're aware that you are seduced by it, you are able to pause, breathe, and smile. And then from that place of stillness, then you responded. But we are so deeply indoctrinated to just feel, think, react, feel, think, react. So to, again, give you a very long answer to a short question, how do I stay in remembrance? How do I keep remembering that I have the seed of enlightenment? It's with the pause, is with the breath, ends with a smile. Even if I don't feel like a pause, or I don't feel like taking a breath, I don't feel like smiling, I do it anyways. That's what sets people from going to the next level and staying stagnant, and literally in their process, continuously in their process, or in a victim mindset. It's that choice to say, you know what? I don't give a fuck how fucking crunchy I feel right now, how annoyed I am, how angry I am. I'm going to do the practices because I choose to practice until I am free. So that's a little something there about that.
I love it. Definitely something. And I love just I like how you use the verbiage one, crunchy, and then two, wobbly. I understand crunchy and I think I understand wobbly, but will you briefly explain those?
Yeah, so crunchy is like like that, like
Yeah.
wobbly, it's like you cannot make a decision to save your life. You have no access to equanimity, which is a state of internal instability. You are split, and your attention is like, 30% in the past, 10% in the present, and the other, I can't do math, and the other percentage, 60%, I think I'm right, 30, 10, 40, 60% of it in the future. So that's wobbliness. It's like literally you're like, it's not the beautiful, like, dance of a tree in the wind. It's a scattered, fragmented state of being. That's very poisonous for the mind and for the body to live like that. But so many, we've been indoctrinated to believe that multitasking is the way to achieve success, and then we've been indoctrinated to equate success, wealth, as more as higher moral. Like people who have enormous amounts of wealth are better, are they're more they're good people. People who have enormous amounts of money or success, they're equated to, like, they're better humans. They have a higher moral code than I do. So it's this keeps going to that view because you haven't touched base, and like touching base moment to moment, it takes work. And at some point, here's the most beautiful thing I can offer you, which I've seen massive transformation for me. It's the fact that instead of you going from crunchy to wobbly, back to bed, under the misery blanket, or from the misery blanket into the wine, to the Coke, to the pot, and to the ice cream, you're able to, it's there's a natural pause that comes in. The breath, instead of becoming shallow and more shallow, the pause is introduced automatically. Instead of the automatic be more poison, more pain, more destruction, more that spiral that goes that way or this way, there's an introduction of a pause. You now have become your best friend. You're no longer your enemy. Your mind can CAN be trusted. That is a free motherfucking feeling, because if you're like me, who's experienced suicidal thoughts regularly it was about 2 years of having it regularly, like contemplating my mortality day in, day out, moment to moment. It was quite taxing for the being, right, to live like that. But when you do these practices, right, the obedient devotion to be free, there comes a point that the breath becomes deep and long instead of short and shallow. That the Tara mantra pours into your mind. All of a sudden, before you scream back at your partner or the cashier register or your Uber driver, the mantra pours in, Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha, and you're like, oh shit, okay, let this motherfucker be happy too. Gotta go. Let her be happy, let them be good. Oh, I wish your dreams to be I wish all your dreams to manifest, despite of how your conditioning wants to pull you back into your old ways of thinking, feeling, and acting, right? There is that point where you're now able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, bitch, you look good, instead of being like, oh, you're gross. There is that point that, like, the freedom vocabulary becomes a default. That is the contingency plan for freedom. That then The quality of the architecture of your brain changes, the quality of your mind changes, the openness of your heart changes, so much so that it's what I said earlier, but like you're now able to rely on yourself. And for someone who's experienced, the low lows of depression, the high highs of addiction and anxiety, like to be where I'm at today is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, this is really possible. That's why everything I do, there's
Amazing.
a sense of urgency, for that reason.
It's amazing. So, like, what are you? I mean, you might have just mentioned something, but what are you proud of yourself for?
What am I proud of myself for? I think getting out of the suicidal loop, you know, um, and being able to make peace with addiction. I'm 3 years, 5 months sober. Um, there was a point, honey, that I didn't know that I could ever live without pot or
Hmm.
alcohol or cocaine or ecstasy. I mean, I smoked crack when I was 14. So
Yeah.
if you trace it back, that little boy, was like numbing out from a very young age because it didn't get the care and the love and support, and like, hey, your queerness is magic, it's not bad,
Yes.
those words are not spoken. So the numbing out came from a young age, and then the what I did numbed the fuck out or intoxicated then caused me more pain and pain to other people, and then carrying the guilt and then the shame that came from that, it just created a life of misery. So to then be sober and have made peace with suicidal thoughts and that kind of style of thinking, it's pretty crazy. I'm not saying it doesn't visit me. Like a couple weeks ago, I was in the virtual book tour in the circuit, just going nonstop. And the moment that I get utterly exhausted, physiologically exhausted, um, the thoughts of hopelessness and a little texture of like, there's no point, just do this. Uh, this will be easier, shows up. But now the spaciousness of mind, right? Looking at the sky as a metaphor, like I recognize that that's just a cloud, but I'm the motherfucking sky. I'm as vast as the sky and as bright as the sun, but that cloud in the past used to define my whole being. Um, so that's that. These are for me, I think some of the most, I mean, I could also say, the books, the community, all these incredible external uh, validations of the internal freedom that I've cultivated. But it really has to do with like, I really like myself now. That's cool.
Well, that really is amazing. And like, why I asked that question is actually, that's funny. I didn't even think about, yeah, the books or like any of those accomplishments. Yeah, it's just more of, yeah, like look how you live and how you've lived and how just your soul and your being and your essence is incredible.
Oh, honey, thank you. What you
Hmm.
see me is in you, honey. You can't see what's out there without, you have to have had this in you in order for you
Hmm.
to see that. So thank you for just recognizing what's
For
in me
sure.
too.
So welcome. And you mentioned a bit earlier, you mentioned fear. So I'm a fear coach. That's what I do every day. What is your relationship with fear?
I think fear, for me right now, what am I fearful of right now? Hmm. Oh, I have fear that because my mom has surgery. She's taking out the expanders. She had breast cancer, so she's taking
Yes.
out the expanders, and then now she's putting the implants. So we're all going to Florida in like next week. So the fear that the surgery could go bad like visits my mind a little bit. But personally, my own life, like I've danced with fear so much, like um, legit. Like I'm not metaphorically speaking. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
legit fear shows up,
Yeah.
honey. I put on some like Berlin electronic music, and I just like let it rip, honey. Like, oh, thank you for showing me that I need to dance more, that I need to laugh more.
Mm.
um, and I think fear is signaling one of two. One thing for me, it's like either something new, you know, or fear is signaling a no, a hard no about something. But personally, in my life, I don't have a lot of fear of anything right now. I'm like right now, you got me in a good day, honey. But I'm like, I'm
Hey.
at ease. I'm good today, you know? Like it's not every day, you know? And people think like, oh, you're a joy activist. Does that mean that you're always in a good mood? No, honey. It's just the activist part says I'm devoted to the work.
Hmm.
You know, I'm devoted to being free no matter how crunchy or wobbly or fearful I am. The activist part just means like I'm obedient to my devotion to become free for the sake of all people, right? Um, so my relationship to fear is like dance your fears, laugh at them, recognize them. That I think that recognize that you know a lot of the ways you are experiencing your relationship to fear is, I think one other fear I'm thinking now that we're talking about this is something else came into my mind before I go in this other little space. Imposter syndrome.
Mm,
So fear of succeeding,
yes.
fear of, before the book came out, this new book, I was like, oh my God, what are people gonna think? Did I do a good job? Did I write things that are helpful? So fear of people receiving the book, fear of like the people that endorse my book, are they gonna like the book? Having these like people that I've looked up to have endorsed the book, and I'm like, oh shit, now the book is there. Your name's printed on it. Sorry, honey. So
Yeah.
like having fear on that, and then just recognizing that, like, I think that this fear, again, another side of it too. I think having fear around stepping into your power, the way I've been sort of interpreting it too, it's very selfish because, and I know we might use the word selfish a little different, but in my vocabulary, I think it's selfish because, like, imagine if I was fearful of writing this book, right? And then like, or stepping to my power to create the spiritually sassy movement and the things that we're doing in this scale, it would be extremely selfish because I would be doing myself a disservice and the world a disservice, because when you don't share your gifts because of fear of failure, fear of not being liked, fear of not being accepted, fear of whatever variation of it, you're doing yourself a disservice and the world, because the purpose of human life, the way I see it, is to transform your mind, open your heart, and intimately experience what we call in Buddhism the Brahma Viharas, right? Love, compassion, wisdom, and joy, the four qualities of an awakened heart. And then creatively express them into the world. And that is your gift. That is what you're here to do. And once you figure out how to creatively express the Brahma Viharas, these four qualities of an awakened heart, if you stop doing that, you're withholding your awakening. You're withholding the awakening of all people, because we're all interdependent. So if you're not sharing your gifts because you're afraid, if you're not sharing your most outrageous state of compassionate being because you're afraid, then honey, how am I going to experience your compassion? Then how am I going to, enter the world from that place? So it's all this interdependence piece is very big. So I hope that makes sense.
Amen. I love it.
Yeah. So that's a little something there.
I love that. Yeah, and I totally agree. And it would be selfish if you didn't share. Um, and you mentioned earlier about multitasking is regurgitating traumas. Will you go into that?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I've never heard that.
Yeah, so it's like this. I was just checking my calendar real quick. So it's like this. So in short, I'm glad you brought this up because it's good to break this down. How do you make peace with how do you stop regurgitating your traumas? Like, how do you make peace with the past? Like, first thing is to experience safety, right? It's to feel safe in the now, to feel safe in the here and the now. It's the way for you to then, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm safe in the now. With this safety, then I can experience compassion, wisdom, love, and even some joy, right? Because these qualities of the heart, they don't come one at a time. They travel together, right? They're interchangeable. So what's happening when you're not cultivating presence? What's happening when you're not when you're not doing one thing at a time? What's happening when you're multitasking constantly? You're not cultivating wholeness, you're not cultivating magnetism, you're not cultivating safety. You're doing the polar opposite. When you're scattered and fragmented, what happens? You feel a little bit disease in the body, this, and like a little bit of crunch, a little bit of wobbliness. And what happens? That little feeling, it's unless you've done the work of disentangling what's hardwired with every feeling, right? So for me, I'm gonna give you an example. If I start to multitask and I get a buzzing feeling on my belly, this buzzing anxiety in my belly has been hardwired with the suicidal thoughts. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
now, if I am cultivating wholeness, cultivating magnetism, cultivating safety in the here and the now, I'm able to recognize that there's a sensation in my belly. It's not, hey, Sa, jump off this thing, girl, because you're this or that. It's literally a sensation in the body. It's it's nothing more than it will last for 90 seconds, right? It will pass after that. It does not define who I am. It doesn't define my life. It doesn't define, my day. So the when I speak about regurgitating your traumas, is that if imagine if I didn't have presence and safety in the here and the now, and I wasn't cultivating this wholeness and this ability to be safe in the now, I would have had immediately, automatically associated the buzzing anxiety that I cultivated, like unintentionally. The word cultivation could be used in a proactive or a negative way. In a negative way, in a not empowered way, I would have cultivated this like multitasking thing, had met the anxiety with more fear, with more doubt, with more insecurity. And then what happened when the suicidal thoughts had populated my mind, I would have believed it. And then God knows what I would have done from there. So that's why I'm talking about regurgitating of traumas, because what's unless you've done the work of unraveling your relationship to feelings and thoughts, unless you've done the work of pausing, breathing, smiling, and recognize that not every thought and feeling requires a reaction from you, the way we spoke about earlier, you're going to do this multitasking thing. I'm cooking and I'm watching TV, or like I'm walking, I'm listening to Ben, and I'm driving and doing this and da, 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 da. Like I was the person who was like eating a sandwich, smoking a cigarette, drinking coffee, talking to my assistant, and reading the news back in fashion days, right? And I thought I was accomplishing a shitload of stuff.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is, I was just cultivating more more like this ease in the body, more wobbliness of mind, chaos, complete chaos. And because of that, then I was regurgitating my past into the present. Does that make sense?
I love that. Thank you for explaining that. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
cool. Because we know that multitasking isn't productive, but regurgitating traumas, that's a whole different take. I'm like encouraging. It's very motivating to not do it.
Yeah, I mean it's just, and I know some people are like, "Hey, honey, I have kids. I have
Yeah, yeah,
4 kids. I gotta cook and wash them." It's like, look, here's what I got to tell you. Like, for those hours that all the kids are home and the partner is home and everyone's wanting something from you, and you feel like that's your role, that's the role that you're fulfilling right now, uh, then for that amount of time, then fulfill that role. Like, multitask, and try to give glimpses of presence here and there, right? But on the other side of that, I do need you to make sure that you're blocking off time in your day to just do one thing. One thing. It's like you meditate, or you're gonna listen to Ben's podcast. You lay down in your bed and you listen to it. Like, I hear so many people where you sit down on your couch and listen, or take yourself to the beach or the park and listen to it there. Like, so many people are like, they're walking their dogs and they're listening to a podcast,
yes.
or
And we're
they're
texting and
yeah, and it's
yeah.
like, yo, honey, or they're listening to a podcast and they're scrolling on Instagram. It's like,
Yeah.
yo, honey, notice that urge. Give yourself a
Mm.
little slap on your hand. It's your relationship to your cravings and to your urges and to all the stimuli will change once you cultivate presence, once you cultivate this like single point of concentration, once you cultivate a sense of safety in the now. So that's a little something there, and I hope that helps people, because it's just came through in the download, not too long ago, maybe a month ago or something, about like multitasking is like regurgitation of trauma, where unintentionally that's happening at a very, very subtle level. It takes like a clear, concentrated mind to be able to see like, oh shit, that's what's happening. Oh my God. And when it came through, I put it out there and people are like, oh shit, that's right, honey. That's what's happening. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. That download was like, it was like a necessary one for me and the collective too. But moment to moment, right? I mean, moment to moment, try.
I love that, man. Last question for you.
Yes.
When do you, and this could be one question tied up all in one, but when do you feel you're most free? And then what is freedom to you? Because you've mentioned it throughout the call or throughout the
Okay, good.
convo.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you for saying that, though. So let's define freedom, right? Very important to define freedom. Oftentimes, because of my, studying in like Vajrayana Mahayana Buddhism, the word freedom can be associated with enlightenment. And yes, we are working and in that direction. And I wish you could see my hand. It's not in that direction. It's in this direction. We're going inward towards a direction of freedom. Uh, and and the freedom that I speak about, it's like waking up with courage, going to sleep relaxed. Something traumatic happens, you're able to forgive more quickly. You're able to call your mom back, and when mom or partner or father, they start to go into that little crunchy area that's like, don't go there, and you've had these very hard boundaries around, and like, I have to hang up now. In that very moment, your boundaries become flexible because you have internal stability. That is when you know that you're becoming free. You're able to dance a little bit like that. They're able to throw a little something at you. You're able to throw something at you like that, and nothing sticks. Things are not sticking. That you're no longer wearing a Velcro suit. You're now wearing like a velvet suit, where it just slides by and it feels good as it does. It's like, oh, that's nice. So freedom could be a variation of and these are the qualities of someone who's becoming free, someone who has like a creative perspective, someone that recognizes that they have basic goodness, someone that thinks about the well-being of others. These are some of the things. Someone who's not afraid of standing up for injustice, someone who's not afraid of standing up for oppression, someone who's not afraid of standing up for a marginalized community, someone who's not afraid of saying enough is enough, bitch. That is like a quality of someone who's working towards their freedom. It's not passive at all. Freedom, a freedom seeker and an embodied individual with freedom is not passive at all. It's extremely proactive. It's fierce. That is a quality of someone who's free. It's someone who's not afraid to experiment, with themselves, with their lives, with their body. Is someone who is genuinely seeking ways to better themselves regularly so they can be of benefit to other people. But freedom comes with like a state of being relaxed. I feel relaxed inside my being. I like my body. I like who I am. These are some of the qualities of someone who's what freedom means. And how do I become free? I think that was the twofold, right? The
Yeah.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I think lately, how I feel most free, it's been in like being in conversation with like amazing people like you, amazing friends from my old world of like fashion, art, music, film, and then people from my new world, spiritual teachers, wellness experts of sorts, and us all sort of sharing our view in the world and finding so much. How so much of it is we're seeing and we're connecting just through different language, but the experience is so it's so one of the same. And dancing, of course. And I think these are some of the main things right now for me, where I experience how I've been experiencing freedom. But of course, there's the foundation practice of the concentration of mind, right? Every day, concentration of mind.
I love that. And for you, like really, like when you say dancing, that really is like a pillar.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and it's so for me, I hosted a retreat like last month and we did ecstatic dance and that was the first time I did it. And that was my favorite part. It like, no, it was spiritual for me,
That's right.
and there were people like crying, like you know, like releasing like traumas and having these memories. And I was like, what the hell? Like, you know, but it was amazing. Like I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, ecstatic dance is absolutely a spiritual practice. It's
Hmm.
oof. Oh, honey, some point we'll talk off the record about some of the things that some of the internal changes that happen inside of me with
Mm.
dance. It's like, oh my God. And we also have to think that historically, you know, we perhaps like danced before we spoke, you know, perhaps we danced before we wrote and you know, we have to think historically, the the power of dance in human history, you know, like that.
Amazing. Well, Saul, like I'm honored. Thank you for showing up as you is in all the ways in your being. Um, what, I mean, where's the best place for people to connect you and like get your book and all the things?
Thank you, honey. Appreciate it. On IG, if you are an Instagram person at Sade Simone, or if you are a TikTok person at Sade Simone as well, both places you can find all the things. Or yeah, go to the social medias, and that's where you find all the things. You have access to the website, you have access to merch, the books, the membership, all the stuff. It's all there, and you know, we I hope that you know we as the spiritual assassin community could be of support to you, where we're saying fuck to zombie zen, and we are you know,
Yeah.
radically redefining spirituality, and that's a new home for all of you who never
Mm.
felt like you know, these wellness and spiritual places were a place that you felt like you belong. um, Come home and let's see if the spiritually sassy way works for you, and
Well,
let's dance together.
I love it. And what really hits me about it is, and it's cool, you kind of mentioned it, it's safe, but it's also it's exciting. It's like you laugh. It's like what you're talking about. That's such an interesting combo, right? Of like, wow, I feel really safe and loved. And also I can like there's no doubt that someone doesn't that's in your community that's not smiling like once a day, you know, even if they're pissed off.
The work is done, honey. It's like I can go nap for a couple of days when I hear that, because
Good.
that's the quality of freedom of a freedom seeker and an embodied freedom fighter
Mm.
or warrior, whatever variation of that. It's perhaps I didn't mention, but it's the depth of your smile, the depth of your laughter, how often you're
Mm.
laughing. Huge piece of what freedom means to me. And in so many of the spiritual masters and gurus that I've had the honor of studying, the entire talk, the entire satsang, the teaching is filled with giggles and deep belly laughter. So that's a big thing for me as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so honored and grateful. Thank you, honey.
Hmm. Is there anything on your heart or soul that you feel called to share in closing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Absolutely. One thing that's been coming up a lot, I think, during pandemic world is um, it's reminding people that they have a purpose and that they have a mission, and that you may see, you know, Sa and Ben stepping into this role and living out loud like that. It wasn't always like this. You always have to remember that overnight success took 10 fucking years. You know, like you're never gonna hear somebody who's that overnight success or do the things, you know, that perhaps you're like, oh my God, you're in stage with this person, you're doing these things. It's like this didn't happen overnight, honey. Like, so remember that you have a mission, you have a purpose, your voice matters, your dream matters, you know. That in itself, if you could just whisper these words in your mind stream, cultivate these seeds in your mind, um, it will be a game changer for you.
I love it. Well, you were a beautiful earth angel. Thank you for spending your time with us today.
Thank you so much, honey.
Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and any other YouTube things. You know the deal. You know what to do. So thank you so very much for being here, and watch one of these videos on the screen. Woo, woo, woo. Watch these videos. Love you so much.